2 years ago, MG made their European comeback with the very sensible ZS EV, which even today is a very good value car. And now they launched their second EV, so is this car as good as a value as that ZS EV? Hello there monsters and men, ladies and people. MG is lucky that they are not sued by Disney, because this is the MG Marvel R, and welcome to Recharging. Only that name, Marvel R. I mean, it doesn't really fit, does it? You have ZS EV, you have EHS, and now Marvel R? Maybe it is because in China this car is sold as the Roewe Marvel R and they didn't bother to come up with a new name. But also, the name doesn't matter. What matters is if this is a good EV or not. And there is something special about this Marvel R, because it is basically a Porsche. As standard, the Marvel R has 2 electric motors, so all-wheel drive as standard. Awesome, I like it. But no, it is more advanced than that. As standard, the Marvel R has 2 electric motors at the rear. A bigger electric motor and a smaller electric motor. When driving with a constant speed, only the bigger electric motor is enabled. But when accelerating or when driving on a higher speed, the smaller electric motor will help as a sort of a booster. And where this car is basically a Porsche and then a Porsche Taycan is that between those 2 electric motors is a 2-speed gearbox. When driving at around 85 kilometers per hour, then the car will shift to its second gear. When you are flooring the accelerator pedal, you can feel the car shifting, but when driving normally, this is not noticeable. If you want to know the numbers, here they are. This car has 179 horsepower with 410 Nm of torque. With that, it can do 0 to 100 in 7.9 seconds, and the car can actually do 200 kilometers an hour. I mean, for an electric car, that is fast. I think MG did a really good job with the design of this car. Where the ZS EV is a bit generic looking, and yes, it did have a facelift, and no, I didn't think they improved it, this Marvel R is something else. I mean, here in the front you have these very cool looking daytime running lights, and as in modern EV fashion, there is a LED strip that goes over the whole front. It doesn't have a grille because it is an electric car, so it doesn't need one. And under here are what looks like huge fake air vents, but they are actually the headlights. Again, I really like the design. You probably love it or you hate it, and again, I love it. Looking at a picture of this car or looking at it from a distance, the car doesn't look that big, but it is actually longer than a Volkswagen ID.4 and a Skoda Enyaq, so yeah, it is pretty big. But where the ID.4 has more than 500 liters of boot space, this Marvel R only has 357 liters of boot space. Yes, this is the biggest downside of the Marvel R. I mean, for such a big car, it is pretty disappointing. I mean, both cars, the ID.4 and Marvel R, have rear-wheel drive, but where the ID.4 only has 1 electric motor, this Marvel R has 2 electric motors and a gearbox on the rear axle, and that takes space. Therefore, the boot cannot be that deep, and because of that, well, you have less boot space. Under the boot floor there is a bit of space to store something. It is not big enough to store your charge cables though, and if you fold down the rear seats you get a space of 1400 liters. What you do have, unlike the MEB platform cars, is a huge trunk of 150 liters. Well, unless you get the performance version of the Marvel R, because then you lose the frunk but you gain an extra motor, so you have 3 motors. You also have 288 horsepower, 665 Nm of torque, and you can do 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds. So how does the MG Marvel R drive? Does it drive like the MG ZS EV, or does it drive differently? I hope differently though, because the MG ZS EV was a bit too comfortable to drive. Let me start with the fact that this car weighs 1800 kilos, the rear-wheel drive version of the Marvel R. And I don't know how MG has done it, but that is light. Competitors of a similar size with a similar sized battery pack easily go over 2 tons. And you can feel that this car weighs 1800 kilos, because where an ID4 feels like a boat, the MG Marvel R feels more agile to drive. It feels more agile to drive without losing feeling like a big car to drive, because that is important. I mean, I have driven the iOS U5, it was also a really big car, but it didn't feel like a big car to drive, and that feels wrong. But the Marvel R does. Then the driving itself, well, there is nothing sporty about driving the Marvel R. The Marvel R is a really comfortable car with a really comfortable suspension, but in a refined way. For example, take an MG ZS EV through a high-speed corner and it will lean a lot on one side. The Marvel R, you can take it through a high-speed corner. Of course, it may lean a little bit, but it has plenty of grip, it is not unpleasant, and again, it is a really refined way of comfortness that this car gives you. And that is nice. That is nice to travel in for longer distances. Also the steering wheel, not too light, not too heavy, but also not a lot of feeling. Again, the Marvel R is just a really comfortable and also a really quiet car, and therefore you can travel hours in it without getting tired. And now maybe the most important thing about an electric car, its efficiency. And I am a bit mixed about the efficiency of the Marvel R. I have been driving around now for a few days with the Marvel R, and during the day it is around 10 degrees, and during the evening and the night it is 3 to 4 degrees. Keep in mind, this car has a heat pump as standard to help with efficiency, but during the day while driving 100 kilometers an hour, because that is the maximum speed in the Netherlands during the day, sometimes it shows me 16 to 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is really efficient. I like that. And also sometimes, like right now at the moment, it is showing me 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Yeah, lane departure warning. But anyway, 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is not so efficient. And again, this car does have a heat pump. It has the 2-speed gearbox, which should help with efficiency on higher speed. I am a bit mixed. And also when driving higher speeds, sometimes it shows a low consumption that I am happy with, that I think that is efficient, and sometimes it doesn't. It shows too high of a efficiency. I mean, 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers while driving 100 to 30, that is quite a lot. Then you only have 200 kilometers of range left. Anyway, I also did a range test, but if you want to see the full range test, click up here. But my conclusion, during the winter, 300 to 350 kilometers of range, and during summer you can get 350 to 400 kilometers of range. But again, the results are a bit inconsistent, and I don't know why that is, and I really want to know what the influence of the 2-speed gearbox is. I will never know. And again, results are mixed, but during winter 3 to 350, during summer 350 to 400 kilometers of range. As standard, the Marvel R has a 11 kilowatt onboard charger, and because of that, charging it on AC from 0 to 100% will take you about 6 hours. On a fast charger, the Marvel R can take up to 92 kilowatts, and I know what you're thinking. 92 kilowatts, that is not groundbreaking anymore. And you are right. But what is also important is the charging curve, and this Marvel R has a flat charging curve. And because of that, charging it from 10 to 80% will take around half an hour. You might be thinking, this is a charge cable, and you are right, that is not attached to anything, and you are right. I wanted to do something fancy, because just like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, this Marvel R does have support for vehicle to load. But this is a pre-production model, and therefore the vehicle to load adapter is not present. If the adapter is present though, you can charge up another device or even another car with up to 2500 watts. I'll just say it, this car does not have a one-pedal drive mode, unfortunately. I think every electric car should have a one-pedal drive mode. But whatever. This car does have 3 different regen levels though, level 1, 2 and 3. But even on level 3, the regen is not that strong, at least not as strong as I would like. The interior is the area where MG tries to make a difference compared to other car makers, and well, I think that they do. What you see with EVs is that, well, the battery is still relatively expensive and therefore car makers cut cost on the interior. But MG doesn't do that, or at least it doesn't look like it. Of course, the design of the interior is all subjective, but the build quality is on par with all the known car brands, and also the quality of the materials are really good and are actually better than in the known car brands. I mean, you have nice leather, or at least leather look here on the dashboard, and also here with some nice stitching. Nice soft materials are being used here in the door with some stitching. Of course, MG is not a premium car brand and they do not pretend to be one, so the aluminium look here is some plastic, but overall the quality is really good, and it is nicer in here than in a Volkswagen ID4, Kia e-Niro, Hyundai Kona, just to name some competitors. Besides a nice interior, you have really good seats. You can sit in them for hours, and also you have a nice fixed steering wheel. The only thing that I wished for is that I could just pull the steering wheel a little bit more towards me. What about the cubby space then? You have a reasonable sized glove box and also a reasonable sized cubby here under your center armrest. There is a wireless charger here for your phone, but the weird thing is I have to remove the protection cover of my phone, otherwise it doesn't fit. Then in front of that you have two cup holders, you have reasonable sized door pockets, and you have a huge cubby here under the huge infotainment screen. So yes, the big screen here in the middle. One thing you cannot miss when you get into the Marvel R. Behind the screen here in the middle is MG's new iSmart infotainment system, and that system is a huge step forward for MG. I do remember the infotainment system that I've used in the ZS EV that I reviewed 2 years ago, and that was awful. But the iSmart infotainment system, the difference between that system of the ZS EV, it is night and day. This is actually one of the nicest systems that I have used in the cars that I have reviewed. I mean, the system is responsive, it is user friendly. Because the screen is so huge, it is easy to press the tiles on the screen. Again, I am impressed. Really well done, MG. The system also has support for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and because the screen is so huge, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are also huge, so they are easy to see and easy to use. And also with this new system there comes an app. A standard EV app, so you can see the status, you can preheat the car, etc, etc. But there is an app, and that is modern and that is nice. I do have one complaint though about the system, and that is not about the system itself, but about the position of the system. Because car journalists and maybe also myself sometimes complain about the tablets that are stuck here on the dashboard. But they do have a purpose, because when a tablet is stuck here on the dashboard with a touchscreen interface, you have to take your eyes off the road and on the screen to see what you are pressing. That is just how it works, unfortunately. But because you take your eyes off the road, there is a huge difference if your eyes are located here and they have to go back there, or your eyes do have to go all down here and then have to travel back all the way here. Because the position of the screen here in the MG, I take my eyes more off the road than I would like and longer than I would like. So yeah, the system is nice. It's just that those tablets stuck on the dashboard, they do have a purpose. And yes, being a modern car, all controls, including for the climate control, are stuck here in the infotainment system. But there are touch sensitive buttons though for your volume and also to go to the home screen. And for some reason MG has decided to put two physical buttons here on top of the infotainment system for heating your front window and your rear window. I mean, that are not the features that I use the most. But whatever. In front of the driver there is a digital display, and there is a weird quirk when you get into the car. Keep in mind this is a pre-production car, so the software in this car is not the software that you will see in a production car, and also the software is updatable over the air, so it will change over time. But right now there is a weird quirk. Let me show you.
the 21st of November 2021, 12:19 p.m. Bewoot 10,0 degrees Celsius in Rotterdam. Please pay attention to driving safely.
Why? Let's have a look at the rear seats. The seat in front of me is in my typical driving position. I am 1 meter and 85 centimeters and I have plenty of knee room left. I can also shove my feet under the seat in front of me. Headroom though is not the best. I mean, I have this bit left and that is mainly because of this panoramic sunroof. People taller than me might get stuck with their head. The car is quite wide, so sitting here with 3 people, you can do that in all comfort, and also because there is no hump here in the floor. Quality wise, it is actually really good in here, where you see a lot of hard materials in the back of most EVs. Here in the MG, this is soft touch, here is soft touch with some leather and some stitching. Again, quality is really good. Features though, not a whole lot. I thought there was an ashtray here, which I found a bit weird, but there are actually 2 USB ports. You have armrest here in the middle with 2 cup holders and some storage space, and that's it, but it's all that you need. All driving and safety features that are currently available are present on this Marvel R, but this is an area where MG still has to make some improvements, and I hope they will do that through software updates. Let me give you a few examples. This car does have adaptive cruise control, which works great. But as soon as you turn on lane keeping assist, the car bounces a bit too much between the lines and sometimes the car comes a bit too close to the other line. Then when you turn off your cruise control, your lane keeping assist turns into lane departure warning, and when you want to switch lane, you turn on your turning signal and then lane departure warning should be turned off. Sometimes it doesn't do that, or it doesn't do it on time. So you turn on your turning signal, you turn your steering wheel, and then you get a notice from the lane departure warning and feedback in your steering wheel that you are leaving your lane. Really annoying. And also the front collision warning, it is too nervous. I mean, when it thinks that you are going to crash, so you are approaching the car in front of you a bit too quick to its liking, nothing dangerously going on, it will give you an alert from, oh, watch out, don't crash. It doesn't brake, but again, it is still annoying. Okay, so what is my final verdict of the MG Marvel R? I gotta be honest, something in me is really attracted to the MG Marvel R. And I know the car is not flawless, but for the price, and here in the Netherlands it will cost you 45,000 euros, this rear-wheel drive version, you get a car that is fully loaded, that is good looking, that has a nice interior, nice infotainment system, decent range, good enough fast charging capabilities, and is really comfortable to drive. I mean, a similar spec ID4 or Ioniq 5 will cost you at least 5,000 euros more. And I just like underdogs. Again, something in me is really attracted to it. But there is one thing that I think will cost MG a lot of customers, and that is that boot. 357 liters is just not a lot. And yes, I know if you take the rear-wheel drive version, you get a boot of 150 liters. I mean a frunk of 150 liters. But having a boot of 350 liters and a separate space of 150 liters is just not as practical as having a boot of 500 liters. So yeah, again, I think that will cost MG quite some customers. So that was the review of the MG Marvel R. You know the drill. Please give a like and leave a comment. And it would be awesome if you subscribed. And then I would like to say now thank you a lot for watching, and as always, to be continued.